because this guy is a cherished part of Bay Area history who is still cherished and is still making history. He is the emeritus chair of the astronomy department at Foothill College. He's teaching at the University of San Francisco and San Francisco State, lead author of OpenStack's astronomy textbook. It's a way to bring textbooks for free to so many students who, again, can use some help with affording textbooks. When it comes to astronomy, I just think he's such a great ambassador for that world. How about it for Professor Andrew Fraknoi? Hello, sir.
Thank you. What a nice.
He's muted right now, but there he is. Yeah, good to talk to you, Andrew Fraknoi. My gosh, you're just you're the Bay Area's Neil deGrasse Tyson. You've brought it, and I used to call you the Bay Area's Carl Sagan, because I think you just create this wonder and this world and making it all understandable. So, review for me what an eclipse is again, a solar eclipse, and how it's possible to see it, and even if it's not total, how we might also still be able to get a piece of it.
Well, great. Thank you so much. So this Monday, April 8th, the entire North American continent will experience, as you heard, this great sky spectacle, an eclipse of the sun. What happens is that the moon gets in front of the sun and blocks some, or in some places, all of its light. And that's an amazing cosmic coincidence, Mark. It's really quite something, because as seen from Earth, the moon is the same size in the sky as the sun. The moon's much smaller, but it's closer. The sun is much bigger, but it's further, and it just works out. We've actually calculated that that's not true on any other planet. If you went to Mars or Jupiter, there wouldn't be just an exact coverage by the moon of the sun. We're the only place that happens. So
I had no idea. That's fascinating. I didn't realize that. That's really a cool fact.
Congratulate all the Mark Thompson listeners for their good taste in being born on this planet. But so what's happening April 8th? In a narrow path, starting in Mexico, in Mazatlan, and how nice. There we see the path. Starting on the western coast of Mexico, you see the dark path going up toward the northeast, going through many populated areas of Texas, through Indiana, the Midwest, and then into the northeastern states, including upstate New York. As you guys heard, Niagara Falls is on that black path, and then into New England and northeastern Canada. If you're in that path, you see the moon exactly covering the sun. And there are about 32 million people who live in that path already. And we expect that number to at least double on Monday, which is causing incredible headaches and you heard an emergency has been declared around Niagara Falls. We've been working for 2 years with emergency management agencies, trying to warn them and prepare them. And it's coming next Monday. That's what's happening.
I have to say that it's so interesting because people look for, you call it totality, where you have complete shading of the sun by the moon, right? It's called. So you want ideally to be in that place which has that totality. But for most of us, and many of us in America who are not going to be traveling to these places or don't live in those places, we're not going to get that totality. So you still can experience it. I know the sun is so powerful that even if just you can cover up 75% of it, and you're still not going to see much reduction in the amount of light that you have, right?
You're absolutely right. So if you're in that zone that we just showed, then you will see the spectacular turning of day into night. When the sun is completely covered by the moon, it gets so dark, some of the brighter stars come out, animals are all confused. It's an eerie spectacle. But if you're not in that zone, which is most of us, then what you'll see is a bite taken out of the sun, a big black bite taken out of the sun. And in different places in the United States, the bite is different size. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we'll see about 45% of the sun covered, the sun's diameter covered by the moon. In New York, they'll see 91% of the sun covered. So just depends on where you are relative to that path. But if any part of the sun is showing, and this is the important thing to take away from today's show, if any part of the sun is showing, it's really important to protect your eyes. It's not safe to look at the sun. Even if 91% is covered, that other 9% could damage your eyes because the sun's light is so intense. So if you want to view the partial eclipse, well, I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but you either need those special eclipse glasses, and we'll talk about how to get them, or you need to project an image of the sun, which is safe to look at.
That is really what I wanted to get to, since most of us are, as you've suggested, not in these places that are going to get the totality. So we're going to get a partial eclipse. But the partial eclipse is a really cool thing to see. And as you say, there are these kind of makeshift things you can do to see it.
Right. So the first thing I want to report is that thanks to the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation here in the Bay Area, we got a grant to distribute 6 million eclipse glasses
Wow.
through 13,000 public libraries nationwide.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so we're thrilled with this. And I checked in the Bay Area, some libraries still have the glasses left. For
Come
example, San
on.
Francisco.
What?
Yes. Get out there. Get those glasses at the library.
Now, don't be disappointed if they're gone. 6 million sounds like a lot, but there are 500 million people who live in North America. So 6 million is still only a small amount. But again, you don't need the glasses for each person. You can share the glasses because eclipses are slow. They take over an hour to get to maximum and another hour for the moon to get off the sun. So you can share glasses with other people. But if you have these glasses, then you can safely look at the sun. To tell that it's real, authentic glasses, on the back of the glasses, look for the ISO statement. ISO is the organization of eye doctors and eye professionals, and they certify these glasses. So look for an ISO certification on the back of your glasses. But if you can't get glasses, as Mark points out, there are other ways of looking at the sun safely. And my favorite involves a household colander. Now you might say, what? What does a colander have to do with
What?
the sun?
Right.
So it turns out that each
Yeah.
hole, you know what a colander is, right? It's what you
Sure,
wash
it's just-
the pasta and the salad in.
Sure.
It's full of holes. Now, if you stand with your back to the sun, there you go, thank you. You stand with your back to the sun and hold the colander over your shoulder. Then the sun's rays will go through the colander, and each hole will act like a little pinhole projector. And the shadow on the sidewalk will show you many eclipsed suns. And you can watch the eclipse grow in size as the time goes by, just using a colander. And if you're standing in the middle of the street, holding a colander over your shoulder, some neighbor's going to come out and check to see if you're okay. And then you can involve the neighbors in watching the eclipse. So
The
it's a great
science
tool.
is ridiculous.
No, I think he's a distinguished scientist. I think it's actually sound science.
I've done this, so I could guarantee you that it'll be a fun way to see the eclipse sun.
Can you make pasta while watching the eclipse? Phineas wants to know. Well, that's a great.
Probably not recommended. Focus
yeah.
on what you're doing with the sun.
It's pretty amazing. Here's another. Well, let me just quickly remark on this. I'm always astounded by these sorts of things of the sort that you've just mentioned, Professor Fraknoi, because these are discoveries that were made thousands of years ago. People realized this was a way to view this natural phenomenon. And
That's right.
they made this discovery, without all of the bells and whistles of technology that we have today.
That's so true. So one of the things that we realize, and anyone who's in the zone of totality will realize next Monday, is that when the moon blocks the sun, the light doesn't go completely out. The sun has an atmosphere, a thin layer of glowing gas around it, which is much fainter than the sun. It's usually completely flooded by the brilliance of the sun. But when the moon exactly covers the sun, the atmosphere of the sun comes out. We call it a corona because it's like a glowing crown around the sun. And that's how we discovered that the sun has that kind of atmosphere. We now know that that atmosphere is actually hotter than the sun, which makes no sense whatsoever. As you get away from the sun, things should get cooler. But it turns out there's an enormous amount of magnetism roiling the atmosphere of the sun, making it much hotter, causing great loops of material to come out, which you can also see during a total eclipse. So we learned a tremendous amount about our own star, the sun, just by watching these incredibly convenient coincidental eclipses.
It's just remarkable. It really is. Someone had a question. Let me just see if I can get it. It was about the can you fly a plane, David is asking, and stay in eclipse from Mexico to Canada?
That's a great question. So people are trying to do that, to rent a fast plane and to go from where the eclipse spot first hits the Earth to where it's going. Because as the Earth turns, as you saw on that map that we showed, the eclipse spot moves from one place to another. So it starts in Mexico and goes all the way up to Canada. Can you follow along? So I tried to figure out the speed with which it's moving. And the speed with which it's moving near Mexico, when it's in Mexico, is 1,600 miles per hour. By the time it gets to Indiana, the spot is moving at about 2,000 miles per hour. And when it gets to the very edge of the eastern side of Canada, it's going to be moving because of the angle at more than 4,000 miles per hour. So this is going to be hard to keep up with. You can certainly keep up with it a little bit, but I don't know if even Elon Musk has the planes to fly.
Yeah, that sounds like it's not the best plan, right? Well, it's really exciting. Look at this. This is so true, Andrew Fraknoi. The Fraknoi experience. What could be better? Thank you for so many years of enlightenment, says Cameo. How about that?
So thank you so much. So let's give the times for the listeners who are in Northern California. What will be the times on Monday where it'll be best to look at the sun? So locally, the eclipse will begin in Northern California at about 10:15 in the morning. The maximum bite out of the sun will be taken at about 11:13 a.m. and the eclipse will be over by 12:16 p.m. So it's about 2 hours from 10:15 to 12:15. Now, that's a very slow process when the moon slowly moves across the sun. So if you only have a little bit of time, it's Monday, it's a work and school day. My recommendation is go out at 11, take your colander or your eclipse glasses with you, go out at 11 and stay out till about 11:30. That's a good half hour to see the maximum eclipse. You get to see the nice bite taken out of it, share it with other people at your work or your home, and then you can go back about your business after.
That seems like a very good plan, except for the fact, Albert, I didn't realize this, Albert, that this eclipse is going to coincide with our show on Monday. And are you aware of this, Albert?
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
How could you put our show up against a total eclipse of the sun, Albert? I mean...
Yeah, it was calculated, Mark. That's a Tony Day, so I will actually be out there.
Oh, Albert does not
glasses.
produce on Mondays and Tuesdays, and so he's saying Tony will be here. So, all right. Well, I mean, Albert, still, I'm going to...
Albert, thank you.
We may... Kim and I will figure out a way that we can go out and enjoy the eclipse, even though it's going to be conflicting with it. I didn't realize it until just this moment when Professor Fraknoi reviewed the times. That's why I myself have learned something here today. There was a question, and before I let you go, about, I mentioned ancient peoples, and this is really a good question from Edward Lee. Thank you for the super chat.
Big shout out.
What is your favorite ancient structure that glorifies an eclipse?
Well, without question, Stonehenge. We now know that Stonehenge in England was actually an eclipse calculator. They were able to keep track of the sort of regularity of eclipses. There's an eclipse season somewhere on Earth every 6 months. Now, that doesn't mean you always get a total eclipse. Sometimes you only get a partial eclipse. But every 6 months, it's possible to have an eclipse because the moon in its orbit is roughly in the same location as the sun, and an eclipse can happen. Most of the Earth is water. So most of the time when an eclipse happens, it happens over water, and you don't get publicity on the Mark Thompson show for it. But every once in a while, it has the good taste to come down in a populated area. And so that's why you don't hear about eclipses every 6 months. But that's what the Stonehenge stones, the many rows of stones, enabled the people of its time to do. And there are also wonderful eclipse paintings in Aztec and Maya monuments. So many ancient cultures were aware of eclipses and celebrated eclipses the way we do.
Wow. Really great stuff, man. Well, there'll be no shortage of pictures and great photography around the eclipse.
Well, we should mention that perhaps is that, again, it's not safe to look at the eclipsed sun if it's just partially eclipsed, like it will be here, with your iPhone. The iPhone is not something that has protective material on it. So there is a new device called Solar Snap that you can attach to your iPhone, and it filters out the intense light of the sun. But if you don't have that, be careful. Either hold up the glasses to the iPhone or don't take iPhone pictures directly. You can hurt your eyes.
I mean, and we always want to photograph these moments, but the reality is there are going to be plenty of photographs of the moment. I mean, you don't need to, you don't need to take a picture, just to put it bluntly. There's Solar Snap. Thank you, Albert, for that.
And those are the glasses that.
And there's still time to get it. I mean, they might be sold out, but you can try them on Amazon and elsewhere.
Right. The company that makes the reliable ones in the U.S. is called American Paper Optics, and they say they can still Federal Express some to you. I'm sure places like the Exploratorium and the Chabot Science Center will have glasses to give away or sell. And as I say, libraries might still have some. I went to my library in San Francisco, and they still had some. So check them out first.
That's terrific. Thank you, Professor Fraknoi. Someone's saying, it's Julie. Thank you, Professor. Just wonderful. Yeah, you have a lot of fans here, Professor Fraknoi, as you know. I have Solar Snap, somebody says. It worked great on the phone for the eclipse in October. So it's been road tested by our audience, and it does work. So cool about Stonehenge, says Ren. That's an amazing place to visit. And yeah, a lot of great information today, Professor Fraknoi. Wow.
Well, thank you. Let me just mention, sort of as a final thought about all this,
Yes, sir.
that eclipses are temporary. The moon is actually moving away from the Earth very, very slowly. So it's not going to happen anytime soon. But in millions of years, the moon will be so far away, it won't be able to eclipse the sun anymore. So this is another reason to get in touch with eclipses this time around when we're here, because one day they won't be possible. It's just a remarkable cosmic coincidence.
It really is a spectacular thing to see, too. It's just really a special. I went to Mexico in early 90s. I forget when it was at Cabo San Lucas. And I think I may have mentioned this before, that I was there with the whole crew from, I mean, I wasn't there invited with them, but they happened to be there on the same mission, or whatever you want to call it, excursion. The Star Trek The Next Generation people, so you had Patrick Stewart and LeVar Burton, et cetera. And it was terrific. I mean, that just gave it a little celebrity shimmer, but the moment itself was spectacular. It was unbelievable. It was the kind of thing that's why I've been chasing the second experience. I almost went to Texas, but now it looks as though we're not going to be able to get that together. But after this, it provokes this question. When is the next one, please, Professor Fraknoi? Is there another shot at it?
There will be another one. The next one to cross the United States will be in 2045. But I also asked, when is the next total eclipse in San Francisco? And the computer calculations are December 31st, 2252. So in 228 years, we will have one in San Francisco. Something to leave as a note for your descendants. But let me mention one other thing quickly before we go. If you want to see the total eclipse that Mark was just talking about, it will be live cast. The Exploratorium Science Museum, exploratorium.org in San Francisco, always live cast the eclipse. Look for it on their website, or just go to YouTube and look up the NASA official webcast of the eclipse. They will have a whole channel with special guests live casting the eclipse from wherever it's clear. Because the one thing we didn't talk about is that it could be cloudy. in
Yes.
many places, including Niagara Falls. It
Yeah.
could be really cloudy in April. So there are expeditions ready with TV cameras to live cast the eclipse from wherever it's clear. And you can tune in on that on April 8th.
I love it. Again, the Emeritus Chair of Astronomy Department at Foothill and San Francisco State University, and the OpenStax work you've done to make the astronomy textbook available to so many. Professor Fraknoi, it's great. The lead author of that OpenStax astronomy textbook, and you can find that at, well, we'll put a link to it. I'll tell you what, we'll put a link to it in our, I guess your website might have it, fraknoi.com probably has it. Yeah.
For some reason, that URL was not in demand. So
What?
I got Fraknoi.com, and that's an easy one to go to and find all the nice things Mark has been talking about.
Good stuff. Thanks so much for being. Kim, did you have something? Sometimes you pop back on if you have something.
I did. I had a really quick question, hoping to ask you about a story that I saw that said we might be able to see at the same time the eclipse and the Devil Comet all at once.
Ah, yes, the Devil Comet. There is a very faint comet that's going to be roughly in that part of the sky, but every indication is it's not going to be visible to the naked eye.
Okay.
And you will need binoculars to see it, and you will need to know where to point. So I don't want to play that up because people will be so disappointed. Venus, if you're in the total eclipse path and it gets dark, Venus and Jupiter might be visible. They're planets on either side of the sun. But I wouldn't spend a lot of time looking for the Devil Comet. Just look at the eclipsed sun and the beautiful atmosphere around it, the fast changing and almost glittering display. It's beautiful.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it. Thanks again, Professor Fraknoi. Till next time, all the best, my friend. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.